Hey, we welcome you on into another episode of Big Time Sports Podcast Show. It's Mitch Pinnell and Mitchell Bally here to give you the latest of what's going on in the sporting world. Mitch is in his usual spot, but I am, for the second time in our show's history, coming to you from another location that is not my home office. So Mitch is going to be back with you for the end of this week, man, and we're going to be talking about a number of topics here throughout the show.
Good to be back as well, Mitch. Nice to see the show hit the road for the second time ever. Who knows? Maybe a third time coming up next week. The viewers and listeners will have to stay tuned.
No doubt. I mean, I have to be very careful when I go back home because the setup that I have here, it's just my laptop and, my travel mic. And I'm noticing that it might arguably have better staging and a better view from the camera than it does in my own home office. And I just got dual monitors. So I have to set up my whole thing. Basically telling you guys my home office is in shambles right now, but by this weekend I'm going to try and clean it all up. So we want to start it off by, I didn't want to start off by telling you about that, but I wanted to start off by telling you guys about the fact that if you're watching here on YouTube, be sure you can subscribe, and hit the bell, so be sure to do that. You can also check us out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and SoundCloud, and a number of other places as well. And you can find us on BigTimeSportsOhio.com. That's where our latest articles and videos go. Obviously, our schedule this week in Big Time Sports as well. You can also find us on Facebook at Big Time Sports Ohio, same as our Instagram, or on Twitter at BTS Ohio, and at Mitch Spinell, at Mitchell Balla, pretty much everywhere you need to know. So, Mitch, I mean, we've been covering a lot of stuff throughout the rest of the spring season. We're about to wind it down here. Track meets are coming up for the state. Baseball's in regional play now. We'll get to one of those in a second. I am actually on travel for the Division IV state semifinal game between Strasburg, Franklin, and Gibsonburg, which you guys will be able to see this coming week here on Big Time Sports via replay. It'll be me and Matt Ritzert calling the game. Should be a good one here. The Tigers, one of the top teams in Division IV in the state at 26-2. They will take on a Gibsonburg squad that we mentioned on our earlier episode this week. Will be a rematch of the 2002 state championship game in which the Golden Bears were able to defeat the Tigers. But since then, the Tigers have rattled off a couple of state championship victories since then. So we have that coming for you. We're excited to bring you our last spring action of the softball season. We'll see what goes on from there within baseball and track and field. But we have one team today that participated in the regional semifinals over in Cadiz, Harrison Central. And the New Philadelphia Quakers fought valiantly, but ultimately ended up falling to the Cambridge Bobcats. So that game is officially at a final 3-2. The Bobcats will move on in the Division II Region 11 tournament. They will go to the finals while the Quakers season comes to an end. Very interesting season for the Quakers under Tyler Weisel's squad. They were a very competitive team throughout much of their own conference in the OCC this year, and were able to get a couple of big victories, making it back-to-back Eastern District titles in Division II, a very good season for New Philadelphia. And as for Cambridge, they will advance to the regional championship game for the third time in school history. So congratulations to Cambridge, and, best of luck to New Philadelphia next season. So we go from there over to what's going on in the world of track and field. Mitch, we wanted to list off some of the names here, some of the schools especially that have really been competitive this year and are going to be competing over at Jesse Owens in Columbus in the coming week.
Yeah, Mitch, and they deserve the spotlight here. Instead of naming every single name, because it might take us the entirety of our show, we're just going to name the schools that have recipients or people representing their school in certain or different competitions here at the state tournament for track and field. So starting in Division I here, Alliance will have a couple in boys, Alliance will have a couple. You have Glen Oak, Green, Hoover, Jackson, Massillon, and Perry for Division I here in Stark County that has a lot of their student athletes going down to compete for a state title in many different categories. I mean, pole vault, shot put, 300 hurdles, relays. I mean, the list goes on and on. Pole vaulting on here is a couple of them, but a lot of these schools, Mitch, are getting ready for state send-offs for these student athletes and are trying to get, the students that are still around to come back for the proper send-off for these student athletes. I mean, that's a long list of schools that'll be well represented with multiple student athletes or an athlete competing in more than one tournament down there in the state track and field tournaments. In Division Two, you have Canton South, Fairless, Marlington, Minerva, Sandy Valley. Division Three, a couple others. You have Tuslaw, East Canton, Dalton, and Tusky Valley. I mean, my goodness, that's just the boys' side of things. I mean, that's why if we went through and named all these, we would be here all day and have a long show. For girls in Division One, you have Alliance, Glen Oak with Mitch. The list takes almost half a page. Glen Oak will be well represented at the state track and field for the girls' side of things. Jackson has a good number of girls down there as well. Lake, Louisville, McKinley, and Perry for Division One. Division Two, Manchester, Marlington, Minerva, Northwest, and West Branch. And when you go to Division Three, Dalton, East Canton, Lake Center Christian, who Mitch is having a tremendous year in all their athletics. This is a very successful year for the Tigers of Lake Center Christian High School. Their baseball team getting set to play in the regional semifinal matchup tonight at Louisville at 5 p.m., as well as then St. Thomas Aquinas and Tusky Valley. So a number of schools throughout Divisions 1, 2, and 3, both boys and girls, well represented, and we will have to keep an eye on to see if any of them or multiple of the student athletes can bring home state championships or whatever they are competing in the state track and field meet.
Yeah, you mentioned that Tusky Valley team. It's a very, very competitive squad. I mean, we looking at a runner like Kara Pipitone, who made it to state as a 4-event qualifier. She also broke 3 school records over at regionals. She had a time of 46.47 in the 300 hurdles and was on the 4x100 meter and 4x200 meter relays that both set school records, and also qualified in the 4x400. I mean, looking at some of the accomplishments they had here, the relay team of Pipitone, Emma Benner, Emma Howard, and Leah Borquin qualified in the 4x200 meter relay, setting a mark of 146.52. They broke the record that they set earlier this season. I mean, you go through some of the other names for the Trojans on this list as I'm pulling them up here. You talk about qualifiers such as the ones I just mentioned. Benner, who qualified for the state meet in the 100 hurdles. We mentioned the 4x100 meter relay team of Sally Ray, Emma Benner, Emma Howard, and Kara Pipitone. And then 4x400 is Ward Pipitone, Kylie Fender, and Leah Borquin. I mean, and that's just Tusky Valley. You want to talk about other competitors in this mix in your area, Northwest. Ashlyn Stark qualified for the 400 meter dash for the Northwest Indians. Olivia Lazaris, who was a pole vaulter qualifying for state. Very, very solid performance so far. You want to go over to Dover. You have Sydney Stevenson, a sophomore, who placed 4th with a time of 2 minutes, 14.8 seconds in the regional competition this past Friday. It qualifies her for the track meets in Columbus. You also have the likes of Isaac Blickensdorfer, who's also a sophomore for Dover. On the boys' side, Massillon Perry's Garrett Laubacher was 3rd in the 110 meter hurdles with a time of 14.62. Very good performances from them. Fairless had Brody Plumnio. He was the regional champion in the 800 meters, time of 154.30. A very solid performance there. Elena Price, a freshman for Tuscarora Central Catholic, qualified in the 800 meters, finishing in 2nd place with a new school record of 2 minutes, 18.6 seconds. So that's crazy that a freshman is going to be competing at Jesse Owens next week. Marlington will have Nash Miner, who won the 3,200 meter race in 9 minutes, 27.35 seconds. Bella Graham, a senior from Marlington, won her second regional title at a time of 11 minutes and 6.5 seconds, excuse me. Colin Cernaski, a Marlington junior, won the 1,600 meter race. I mean, just a number of names here. We wanted to shout them out as best we can because these teams are fighting hard to compete in this final race of the season. Also want to shout out New Philadelphia for finishing 3rd, or Preston Rieger of New Philadelphia finished 3rd in the Division I regional at Austintown Fitch, qualifying him for state. He was also in the 4x400 meter team of Elliot Brady, Tyson Autry, Trevor Bean, in another school record time of 3 minutes, 22.52 seconds, broke a 34-year-old record for New Philadelphia High School. So congratulations to all the runners and field performers there. When we come back, we'll be going over some more stuff in the world of sports, including a very interesting game in Baltimore this week and a very interesting article I found on The Athletic. We'll be back right after this. Hey there, folks. This is Mitch Spinell, and I want to give you guys a quick message regarding 988. If you don't know what 988 is, it was created to make it easier to remember how to get help in the event of a mental health or addiction crisis. This is different than a medical, fire, or police emergency where 911 should still be called immediately. 988 connects you with Stark County's Crisis Center, which is equipped to help people in emotional distress or experiencing a mental health or addiction crisis. So remember, 911 for medical, fire, and police emergency help, and 988 for support in overcoming a mental health crisis in Stark County.
Buying a home has never been so affordable with record low interest rates. Hartzler's Quality Housing is ready to put over 40 years of experience to work for you. Family owned and operated since 1978, Hartzler's has a wide selection of model homes on site with a knowledgeable team to help make your new home a reality. Open 6 days a week, visit them off I-77 in Dover or online at hartzlers.com. Hartzler's Quality Housing. Quality from start to finish.
You deserve the best. And at Ferris Chevrolet, Buick, Cadillac, Toyota, that's what you get. We consider you, the customer, to be part of our family. Anybody can make promises, but when you visit Ferris, you get the Ferris deal from a Ferris wheel. So if you're looking for a car, truck, or van, think Ferris. Think Ferris!
You invest a lot in your home and vehicle purchases. Van Nostrand Young and Associates want you to feel secure should anything happen to those investments. We partner with providers like Grange Insurance and other industry leaders to be sure you're presented with the most complete coverage to fit your needs. Because we're not only here to protect the items you invest in, we're here to protect your future as well.
Call Van Nostrand Young Insurance in North Canton at 330-497-1867.
We all have 206 things in common. Our bones keep us up and moving. And we at Cleveland Clinic Union Hospital care about every single one of them. From the tip of your finger to a brand new hip, our orthopedic experts will keep you going while keeping you safe. For every break and breakthrough, for every bone and joint, for every care in the world. Get the care you need when and where you need it. Visit unionhospital.org.
Wendy's without the Wendy's app is like Nugs without the sauce. Or a Frosty without the fries. Or a hamburger without the fresh beef. No! Level up. Get the app to order ahead, order delivery, earn free food, and get app-exclusive offers. One app, all the Wendy's.
Offer for a limited time at participating Wendy's. Terms apply. App registration required. Fresh beef available in the contiguous U.S., Alaska, and Canada.
Vibe Auto Sales, located on West High Avenue in New Philadelphia and Cleveland Avenue in Canton, is a used car dealership committed to getting financing for everyone. We give every customer that walks in our showrooms a prime buying experience, no matter their credit score or financial situation. Current inventory can be viewed at www.wefinancenow.com. Check out our Facebook pages for the most up-to-date information about upcoming events and promotions happening at Vibe Auto Sales.
Get out of the dugout and onto the field with help from Velocity Sports. Velocity Sports is a baseball and softball training academy with locations in North Canton and Canal Fulton. Our new Canal Fulton features 10,000 square feet of training space with 6 cages for hitting and pitching and a large commercial weight room. Velocity Sports will sharpen your skills and get you in the starting lineup. For more info, go to velosportsohio.com.
And we're back at it here on the Big Time Sports Show. I got to go backwards, Cap, for the rest of the episode because the bill was causing shadows on my face, and I didn't bring a ring light with me. So I'm going to go over now to our second topic of the day, which was what happened at Camden Yards yesterday, Mitch, because yesterday afternoon, I wasn't processing what was going on at first. The Cleveland Guardians were scoring runs, and they were scoring an abundance of runs, which we haven't seen a lot this year. And unlike what happened in Queens a few weeks ago, they held on for the victory, and they got a series victory against a home team. So that was very interesting to see.
Back-to-back series wins for the Guardians is a very good thing to see, Mitch. And now they go into Minnesota for a 4-game set, just 3.5 out of first place in the awful American League Central Division. So as bad as this team has been at times, and as much as we want to say how bad they are, they're still very much in the thick of things here, turning the calendar now to the month of June. It was an impressive win because we have not seen the Guardians have an offensive output like that other than a couple times this season.
Yeah.
And for them to go against a Baltimore team, Mitch, that really came into the series at Camden Yards, hitting the ball very, very well. They were on fire in the American League East. They're a very talented baseball team, but the Guardians took care of business, even when their ace, Shane Bieber, didn't have his best stuff. And it was kind of weird how Shane Bieber got touched up. A lot of the time it was with 2 outs, just couldn't get that third out. Giving up a couple big 2-out base hits, 2-run home run to Santander. The Guardians found a way though, and maybe they're finding something at the right time, or maybe the Orioles just weren't as good as we thought. Who knows? It's baseball, but now they have a huge series against Minnesota, a huge series in which your ace and Shane Bieber will not pitch because he pitched yesterday, but Tanner Bybee and Logan Allen, who've come up and provided incredible outings on the mound, whether they've won or lost those games, will throw 2 of those 4. So you have to feel somewhat confident going to Minnesota, a place that they haven't had the best success, but right around this time last year, Mitch, where the Guardians kind of flipped a switch and really turned things upside down on the Twins, at least started to when they went to Target Field, early June last year. And maybe, just maybe, this is the same script the Guardians are going to have. But at the same time, Mitch, if they go there and lose 3 out of 4, we could be having a completely different conversation next week when we are on this show about a team that's potentially 7.5, 8 games out of first. I don't want to go there yet. I want to see what happens, but it was a very big series win, 2 straight series wins against 2 very good opponents in the Cardinals and the Orioles. So I'm happy to see the Guardians can do that right now. I would like a split though, at the very least, against Minnesota this weekend.
It would be nice to not have to worry about that going into Monday. And, with that, we wanted to touch on the topic going back to Bieber because, look, a win is a win. What's that? That's what the meme that generated from I don't know how long ago, but a win is a victory, no matter if it's 10-9 or 1-0 or 28-27, like that weird USA junior baseball game I saw the other day. That was crazy. With that, back-to-back starts now, Bieber has not looked his sharpest. And I think this thought process for fans, including us, kind of generated, I think, even before the season, to where we figured that with the way the Guardians system is and the way they don't pay their top players the biggest of monetary values, that Bieber's time in Cleveland is limited. It's not going to be forever. It's probably going to get shipped off to a team in the same style of CC Sabathia or Cliff Lee or friends or ex, all-star Cleveland player who has some merit beyond just half a season. But now the conversation I saw, especially last night, was that with Bieber, his last 2 starts, his value is starting to sink to a point where I don't know if the Guardians would be able to cash in significantly, even if they were to be in contention by the trade deadline this year, which is interesting to me because people figured with the start the Guardians had this year with the magnified expectations that, this team will peter out by July, and then we're going to start selling off all of our top talent by the deadline. That may not be the case. The pitching can still be solid on a given day. The offense, if they can start really building off of this series, where it seemed like they were to get the bats flying a little more, could do something here. And this Minnesota series is going to be an interesting litmus test for it. That being said, does it worry you when, even if you see the Guardians competing well, if Bieber's not playing up to the rest of the team and he's your ace? I mean, obviously you're worried as a fan because that's your top player, but in terms of what you can maybe get for him in a trade, how much does that worry you?
That's such a good question. It's a hard question because typically when Bieber's out there, you feel very confident that the team is going to be in it. We saw it last week against the Mets on Sunday Night Baseball. They were in that game. It just so happened they were going up against another ace. And sometimes that's the downfall of being an ace. You're matching up with other teams' number 1 starter, and really offense is limited in that game for both sides. Now, in terms of what you could get for Bieber, I think it's inevitable. We all know he's not going to be here long term. maybe something happens and changes. Who knows? The Guardians, though, at the same time, Mitch, I think have realized they're just going to hold on to him and see how far this team can go. Because if they had a package they loved, they probably already had the offer in front of them and declined. His last 2 starts have not been good, but at the same time, when you look at Bieber, he started 12 games. He's 4-3 with 9 quality starts in there. His ERA after yesterday giving up a lot of runs is still just 3.72. He has 75 innings pitched for the Guardians. He is still your top pitcher. I think a lot of it, though, on if they will trade Bieber depends on the package, and also how does Tristan McKenzie look in what assumes to be his first start of the season this upcoming Sunday against the Twins. We know Aaron Savale is going to be activated. That could hopefully be a big boost. And then McKenzie is slated now, not officially, as it still says TBD on the Guardians pitcher for Sunday, but it's expected Tristan McKenzie will make his season debut on Sunday. If McKenzie comes out and pitches like he did last year down the stretch, he might be your new number 1. And if Allen and Bibee can really harness the load, which the Guardians may not want to do, but if they can, is there a world out there that you could trade Bieber for an outfielder that could help your lineup offensively, or a bullpen arm that could really help the back end of the bullpen, which was so dominant last year, but Karinchak just hasn't been the same. I think it's also going to depend on what happens with these other teams now here in the next month. Are some of these teams going to fall off? Are some of these teams going to get desperate that are in the middle of a race? Are the Baltimore Orioles going to fall back a little bit and say, we need to get a starting pitcher? They have 2 good starters, but after that, they're 3 through 5, Mitch. It's nothing special. The St. Louis Cardinals are the same exact way. And I think now, though, with the 5 teams making the playoffs, 6 from each side, it adds a little bit of a wrinkle into things. And I'm intrigued to see what happens. Obviously, the Guardians being in the worst division in baseball helps but hurts them in this scenario. But I know they don't want to give the wrong message to the team, but I still feel like this is a team that may end up trading him, even if they're in the middle of this race, if they can get the right pieces back. But that's only going to be if Shane Bieber can get this thing turned around. He has not been the Shane Bieber we are accustomed to seeing over the past few years.
No, and the one team I'm really focusing on is the Dodgers, because a lot of teams, if you're going to trade him, it's probably going to be to a contender. It's probably going to be LA, who's currently in first place, but they're half a game ahead of the Diamondbacks, who have made a bit of a run here. They're 7-3 to their last 10 and have a 4-game winning streak. Now, will that last? I don't know, but I kind of, if there's going to be a team that they zero in on, I feel like it's going to be a team like the Dodgers. I don't know if it's going to be a team like the ones that were previously mentioned, and I don't know. It's going to be, I'm just hoping we can hold on to him for as long as possible and be able to have fruitful runs with him still on the mound. So we have that there. We come on back. We want to address something that kind of popped in last night. It's tough news. We'll address it right after this break.
The Furby Electric Supply Company has bright ideas for your home. Save money by converting to energy-efficient electrical products or add ambiance with beautiful lighting features. It begins with a professional consultation and a visit to the Furby Lighting Showroom. Then certified Furby contractors complete your project right and on time. Since 1934, 4 generations have built a reputation of quality and trust, and they offer emergency services too. Just visit Furby.com. That's F-U-R-B-A-Y. The Furby Electric Supply Company.
You asked for it and we listened. Buckeye Career Center is now offering Certified Nail Technician as an adult education program. This 216-hour course begins in November and will run Tuesday through Thursday evenings from 5 to 9 p.m. Learn manicures, pedicures, infection control, salon operations, and more. Other part-time certification courses starting this fall include phlebotomy and welding. Call 330-339-2288 to register or visit BuckeyeCareerCenter.org for more information.
If you're looking for a new or pre-owned car or truck, why not see the Parkway Auto Group? Parkway is a special group of automotive experts with 8 brands to satisfy your needs. Come see the difference at the Parkway Auto Group on Commercial Parkway in Dover. 8 brands and 1 family. It's Parkway Auto Group.
Fall is in the air and part-time career enhancement courses at Buckeye Career Center are on the horizon. Registration is now open for Introduction to Beekeeping, Basic Small Engine Repair, and Sign Language. These part-time offerings run on Tuesday evenings and begin in November. Let Buckeye Career Center help you learn a new skill or advance your current skill set. Call 330-339-2288 for more information or to reserve your seat in one of these or our other part-time classes.
Where you matter. You matter. Everyone plays a part. We all have a role. Each of us can make a difference. You do matter, and the best way to have a positive impact is to pay it forward. With each of us helping one another to cope, feel better, and know that we belong. Pass on the positivity today. Tell someone else they matter too. All care. All care, all care. Where you matter.
We all have 206 things in common. Our bones keep us up and moving. And we at Cleveland Clinic Union Hospital care about every single one of them. From the tip of your finger to a brand new hip, our orthopedic experts will keep you going while keeping you safe. For every break and breakthrough, for every bone and joint, for every care in the world. Get the care you need when and where you need it. Visit unionhospital.org.
Employee benefits, although time-consuming and expensive, is one of the top considerations for those making a job change. At Hummel Group, we help businesses craft benefit strategies that align with company goals. Through an emphasis on cost containment, leveraging technology, and benefits administration, we save your team valuable time. Your employees call us with questions, not you. Visit HummelHelps.com or call 800-860-1060. Don't just get insurance. Get Hummel.
June is National Safety Month. Did you know that 80% of injuries related to falling in a home happen in the bathroom, mostly to folks over the age of 65? If you find it hard to get in and out of a standard bathtub and need a new walk-in shower or convenient walk-in bathtub, then call the professionals at JR Bath. JR Bath has been helping to make bathrooms beautiful and safer since 1976. Call JR Bath at 330-494-2365 or visit us at jrbath.com.
And we welcome you back here on the Big Time Sports Podcast Show. The news surfaced last night from the man himself, Jim Donovan, on Front Row of Channel 3 WKYC. Some unfortunate news. Donovan is now battling a relapse of leukemia, which I think he was 10 years ago. He had a process to take on his first bout with leukemia, overcame that, and now he resurfaced last night, kind of addressed the situation and kind of addressed what his future would be in terms of being on Channel 3 and on the Cleveland Browns radio network. Of course, he's been the voice of the Browns since 1999. It's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking to see such a mainstay of Cleveland sports, just anybody in particular have to go through that, but in particular a mainstay like that for so many years, Mitch, that I working at a radio station, I always appreciated Donovan growing up, listening to the radio calls of the Browns games and all that. But it's when I got to work for an affiliate of the Browns radio network, that's when I was kind of able to sort of appraise such a good play-by-play man that Donovan is. And we're obviously hoping the best for him.
Yeah, Mitch, I think when you think of the Cleveland Browns outside of players, Jim Donovan, for most Browns fans, is the first person they think of. He is somebody you listen to on Sundays, someone that feels the pain when we feel Browns losses, someone that gives us so much joy during wins of Browns wins over the seasons or big time plays. And, his memorable call in the 2020 season of the Browns and Baker Mayfield running Maserati, what the play was called, to the right, staying in bounds to officially clinch a playoff berth. And then him getting to call the game in Pittsburgh in which the Browns beat the Steelers. This is something he's dealt with before. And last night he says he knows what he has to do because he's done it before and he plans on doing it again. It seems like he's in the right mindset, the right spirits, as hard of a time this is for him and others, obviously, in his family. But obviously, as much as I want to hear him in the booth on Sundays calling Browns games this fall, which has not necessarily been knocked down out of a realm of possibilities, but at the same time, you can't expect him to when he's battling something like this with leukemia. That was horrible news, heartbreaking news. And, you got to learn a little bit about why maybe he did have a couple games last year where he wasn't there. I know Jeff Phelps had a game. I know at least 2 games last year. I think Jim Donovan was not able to call Browns games. And, some people thought, oh, he's just sick. Well, looking back at this, that, he was undergoing medication, but now it's official that he's had a relapse. Obviously, we hope nothing but the best for Jim Donovan. He is a Cleveland legend when it comes to broadcasting, not just the Browns, but on WKYC, anywhere else he fills in or does interviews or bits for shows. I mean, he is just a true voice of Cleveland, not just the Browns. And we have been so fortunate enough to have some of the best radio voices when you look around growing up, Mitch, with who calls our sports games in Jim Donovan, the late Joe Tate, who we had when we were younger, and then now Tom Hamilton for the Guardians. I mean, I don't know, and yes, I'm biased, but I don't know if there's a better city when it comes to radio play-by-play voices. And we are so lucky. And obviously, we hope to have Jim Donovan back in that. But at the same time, we just hope Jim Donovan gets better, even if that means he doesn't call another Browns game again, because that's what matters most. And it's not just going to be him battling this. He knows, and if he doesn't, he will soon know that the entire city of Cleveland, the WKYC team, the Cleveland Browns, and so many other stations and partners and friends and family are going to be behind him, supporting him during this time. I mean, 11 years ago, he had a bone marrow transplant in the summer of 2011. And so it's been 11 years, but he said the words last night. He knows what he has to do to get through this, and he plans on doing it again. And there's no doubt in my mind that he will be able to do that and put up the good fight.
That says something. When an entire city would be willing to physically, if they could physically fight the disease of leukemia, they would, because that's how much Donovan means to many Browns faithful over the years. I mean, I was going over some of my favorite calls from last night. You mentioned the Maserati play from Baker Mayfield to get the Browns into the playoffs. Obviously, the stuff that he did in that ensuing playoff game against Pittsburgh, when you don't know. I mean, you do know, Mitch, but you don't know the euphoria I was experiencing when you get to the 28-0 lead and Donovan is screaming in the way that we know him to do. And I'll get to some about his broadcasting in a second. Obviously, I was going through last year, even in such a season where things weren't going great, and he even ended up calling out the team near the end of the year. Cade York's field goal at the end of the season against Carolina was like, especially because with the way that we do it on the radio, we can hear the calls live compared to some of the delays you might have throughout the radio situation and obviously on television. But I was standing there like waiting to see what Donovan was going to call because I couldn't see it on television, and just hearing him go, good, and to hear and I was screaming and shouting, and then I had to hold off because in the other room they were on a delay. Everybody else was listening in, and they were exploding as well too. So that was a really cool time. But then we had to calm down and realize, oh man, we got to get this clipped and ready to go for our highlight show. So that was an interesting one. Obviously, Nick Chubb's 70-yard run against the Bengals, which I think was last year or the year before. The winless streak against the Jets being snapped. The Browns are going to win it. And and this is just in the last few years. I mean, I could go back a long ways to a number of his calls.
The Josh Cribbs kickoff return against the Steelers, I believe in 2007, is one that I still remember. And that she also made it enjoyable for the fans when we couldn't really enjoy the team we were watching or listening. When you go back to the winless season, the 1-15 season, although they were bad plays, some of the calls were so memorable. I mean, you think about some of just the head scratching plays that the Browns had with Hugh Jackson, even the fake punt in Stefanski's first game against the Ravens. And you could just hear his disgust and disappointment in some of the calls. And us as Browns fans, diehard Browns fans, could relate with it. And that's what's different, not with every broadcaster, but some that just are there to call the game. But Donovan feels it when he's calling Browns games, and he knows how much it means to not only him or his partner, obviously Doug Deacon, but then last year, Nathan Zagura, but also us, the fans. And, there aren't many people, Mitch, that could call out a team and voice their displeasure while working for that team and have it be okay. But there was no backlash for what Jim Donovan said last year
Yeah.
because he's so respected by a lot of those players, by the organization, by Dee and Jimmy Haslam, who own the Cleveland Browns, that it may have been deserved. And yeah, it could rub people the wrong way, but if Jim Donovan speaks more times than not, Mitch, you're going to listen.
It's almost like the one teacher who's like really chill and you finally acted out so much that even they start to snap, and it's like, whoa, we got to take this seriously now. I was going to say, it's always funny when you would hear him kind of deflated after game-breaking plays or losses sealed for Cleveland, that even when he's deflated, it always sounds like he's doing it with a smile on his face. And I in no way can do a good Jim Donovan, but he always has a sort of cadence where it's like he's like, back to pass, he throws it in the middle and it's picked off. Oh my, and that's going to be the game for the Browns. That's going to do it. Oh, another pick. But that's kind of the way that he always operates. He's got this sort of like upbeat things with it. So second down, it's from the 37-yard line. It'll be, that sort of stuff. That's what I really enjoy.
No, 100%. He made bad games enjoyable sometimes. Not totally enjoyable because we were still losing, but
yeah,
he calls football games for the Browns, for the listeners at home, whether it was at home, in the car, wherever it may have been, made it tolerable, I'll say. And sometimes would get you to crack a smile, even when we did go 1-31 for 2 years. But look, he says he knows that he wants to be back up in that booth. He, when he can, or as much as I can, but he says right now he knows what the duty is and duty calls, and it's for him to go get better. And obviously, hopefully he does get better. And hopefully that can be quick, easy, and painless. And maybe we'll be lucky enough to have Jim Donovan back up there this year. But if not, Mitch, and he takes his time, that's all that matters right now.
Absolutely. There's one victory that is for certain even more than the potential 17 the Browns need this year. This is the one victory we all need.
Yep.
So when we come on back, we'll go over some more NBA-centric topics. We'll be back right after this. Hey there, folks. This is Mitch Spinell, and I want to give you guys a quick message regarding 988. If you don't know what 988 is, it was created to make it easier to remember how to get help in the event of a mental health or addiction crisis. This is different than a medical, fire, or police emergency where 911 should still be called immediately. 988 connects you with Stark County's Crisis Center, which is equipped to help people in emotional distress or experiencing a mental health or addiction crisis. So remember, 911 for medical, fire, and police emergency help, and 988 for support in overcoming a mental health crisis in Stark County.
Are you trying to increase your speed, quickness, vertical leap, and agility? If so, NST Sports Performance is for you. NST trains athletes ages 5 through pro. NST designs each program specific to the athlete's needs, goals, and sports. For more, visit nstsports.com. Locations in North Canton and New Philadelphia. It's nstsports.com.
It takes a lot of practice to have a winning team. Albin Title has over 100 years of combined experience handling real estate, title, and escrow transactions. They serve Tuscarawas, Stark, Carroll, Harrison counties, and more. So choose Albin Title for your next home refinance, sale, or purchase. They'll get it done quickly and professionally. Contact Albin Title at 330-334-5800 or visit their website albintitle.com. Let them put their experience to work for you.
Hard work is something you're accustomed to. Van Nostrand Young understands that principle. Our access is achieved with organizations like Grange Insurance. Safety and prevention specialists utilize our VanCan assessments process to ensure that you and your colleagues are in the best hands. You want the safest environment for your business, and we can guide you there.
Call Van Nostrand Young Insurance in North Canton at 330-497-1867.
If you're purchasing a new home, the team at Hartzler's Quality Housing is here to help. Take advantage of record low interest rates to make your new home a reality. Locally owned and operated since 1978, Hartzler's Quality Housing has the experience to guide you through the process. You'll find a wide selection of model homes on site to fit any budget. Open 6 days a week just off I-77. You can also visit them online at hartzlers.com. Hartzlers Quality Housing. Quality from start to finish.
You deserve the best. And at Ferris Chevrolet, Buick, Cadillac, Toyota, that's what you get. We consider you, the customer, to be part of our family. Anybody can make promises, but when you visit Ferris, you get the Ferris deal from a Ferris wheel. So if you're looking for a car, truck, or van, think Ferris.
Wendy's without the Wendy's app is like Nugs without the sauce. Or a Frosty without the fries. Or a hamburger without the fresh beef. No! Level low. Get the app to order ahead, order delivery, earn free food, and get app-exclusive offers. One app, all the Wendy's.
Offer for a limited time at participating Wendy's. Terms apply. App registration required. Fresh beef available in the contiguous U.S., Alaska, and Canada.
Get out of the dugout and onto the field with help from Velocity Sports. Velocity Sports is a baseball and softball training academy with locations in North Canton and Canal Fulton. Our new Canal Fulton features 10,000 square feet of training space with 6 cages for hitting and pitching and a large commercial weight room. Velocity Sports will sharpen your skills and get you in the starting lineup. For more info, go to velosportsohio.com.
Turning 65 soon or already on Medicare? Hummel Group can help you explore your options and find a plan that fits your unique healthcare needs and budget. Our experienced agents provide personalized advice and help you compare plans from top insurance carriers for free. We're here to help you find the Medicare plan that's right for you. Visit HummelHelps.com or call 800-860-1060 to speak to an agent about Medicare. Don't just get insurance, get Hummel.
All right, we're back here on the Big Time Sports Podcast Show. Really quickly, before we get into these NBA finals that are coming up tonight, Mitch, the news surfaced late last night that one of the coaching decisions I kind of figured was going to happen an hour before was actually announced came to be. The Detroit Pistons have found Monty Williams as their next head coach in a reported, this is according to the reports, 6-year deal. Woj had it around $78.5 million. Mitch, this man took a Phoenix squad from 19 wins before he got there to 2 seasons. He took him to the NBA Finals. Then got ousted by Phoenix this year after their second round loss to the Denver Nuggets. To me, kind of like, whoa, what are we doing here? Because it didn't seem like they were giving him much of a chance to try and regroup and come back against some of the West's best. But at the same time, this feels like a dream scenario for Monty Williams. This is a guy that 8 years ago, was getting fired from the New Orleans Pelicans after 5 seasons because he just wasn't getting anywhere. And then he goes to Phoenix, takes over a squad that had no expectations, gets them to within 2 games of the NBA Finals, wins Coach of the Year, and now is getting paid. There were reports that Detroit was going to offer him up to $100 million to try and resurrect this team who has not had any success since 2009, maybe? I don't know. I can't tell you the last time Detroit was in the playoffs because it feels like it's a long time since Detroit basketball was relevant. But now he can build up from scratch. He can do whatever he wants. He's basically running that organization right now by himself.
Yeah. And I think it tells you how much faith they have in Monty Williams, Mitch, because he now has the largest coaching deal in NBA history if it is a 6-year, $78.5 million deal. If they were, according to reports, willing to offer $100 million to get him, that means they have a lot of faith in Monty Williams. I mean, this is a guy that really kind of burst onto the scene in the bubble with the Suns. If you remember in 2020, the Suns had an improbable run, yet they were just still too far out to really make any noise when it came to the playoffs. It kind of sucks because I think he's a good coach. And now I'm kind of worried that he might be able to get the Pistons back into a spot where they could be relevant again. And they are in the Cavs division and in the Eastern Conference. This is a team that had Cade Cunningham, the former number 1 overall pick. They also had Jaden Ivey and Jalen Duren, who were number 5 and 13 in the last draft. This is a guy, Mitch, that seems to get the most out of his players that are younger and bought in. And if you are the players in the Pistons, how do you not get bought in? This is a guy that took the Suns to the NBA Finals. This is a guy who led the Suns their most wins in franchise history. Keep in mind that it was without Kevin Durant, who they just acquired this year, who played minimal games before the playoffs with them. He got fired from Phoenix, I think, because of how they lost, but also it's a new coach there, right? He probably wants his guy in there. And
New GM, you mean? Or owner?
New owner, excuse me.
Yeah. Matt Ishbia, yeah.
New owner probably wants his guy in there. And there's nothing wrong with that. When you own the team, you can pretty much do whatever you want. But Monty Williams, I think it is now out there, Mitch, that he is a highly wanted candidate, and he is no longer a candidate. He's now the head coach of the Detroit Pistons. And I'm very intrigued to see what he does with that young team up there with, to your point, he can kind of do whatever he wants because they're so young, inexperienced, and they have a lot of capital to build the team over the next few seasons.
Yeah, and it's going to be hard for Phoenix to find a comparably successful head coach going into this new season. One guy that they won't be able to pick up is former NBA championship winning coach Nick Nurse, who has now been finalized as the Philadelphia 76ers successor for Doc Rivers. Now, everyone made the joke right after the hiring that the Sixers essentially traded in a Doc for a Nurse. We all get it. We're all here for it. But I don't know. Philadelphia just needed a change of scenery. We talked about it after that Game 6 loss against Boston, where it's going to be the same Doc Rivers again and again. And Nick Nurse, if Doc Rivers was number one, and I still think he's a solid head coach who's, won a championship. He's done what very few head coaches in the league have done. If Doc Rivers is going to be everyone's number one most overrated head coach at the end of last season, to me, Nick Nurse is number two. Nick, that was, and you could say that the Toronto championship have shouldered a lot of Kawhi Leonard, but Nurse is the coach of that team. Nurse took on a juggernaut Golden State squad, injuries be damned, that still had Steve Kerr on the other side and came out on top. Now, last 2 seasons haven't been as fruitful, or 3 seasons, excuse me. And at the end of that play-in tournament, it just felt like this is not this team can't move forward with this guy. You can only keep regressing until you just regress to a point where you can only go forward. They just didn't want to make that move. And now Nick Nurse is in Philadelphia, where people were making some jokes that he likes to play his players in a lot of minutes. So Embiid, if he had some injury troubles before, it's only going to get worse for him, but we don't know if that's going to be the case or not.
Right. I mean, the way his team was built in Toronto was going to be completely different in how they're built in Philly, strictly because this is a team when he was with Toronto that typically their star players handled the ball a lot more than what a center would.
Right.
I'm very intrigued to see how he uses Embiid. Is this somebody that James Harden can get behind and remains in Philly? We'll have to find out. I mean, look, we agreed Philly had to get rid of Doc Rivers, but there's other moves I think they have to make. I don't think this Philadelphia 76ers team was just a coaching change away from being a favorite in the Eastern Conference. A lot of their holes were shown in that series against the Celtics, and it's been that way for the past few years. Nick Nurse, Mitch, I don't know if you remember his first game with the Toronto Raptors in the playoffs. They lost at home to the Orlando Magic, and Kyle Lowry also, I believe, didn't score, and both of them were ridiculed. And then the next day the next game they came out and beat the Magic by 38. If I'm not mistaken, the first playoff run he had with the Raptors.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people overreact, or both good and bad. This is still a coach, though, that did he get a couple breaks to go his way? Yes. But part of winning championships, you have to have some break or luck go your way, no matter what the sport is. They got him, and he still willed a team back in the Raptors with Kawhi Leonard to an NBA championship. Now, the team hasn't been the same once they lost Kawhi Leonard, and that could be a big reason why. But he deserves a shot. It was just time for him to move on, much like it was time for Doc to move on from Philly and Budenholzer to move on from Milwaukee, and Monty Williams move on from the Suns. That one probably a little different than the others because of the new ownership, but that's neither here nor there. I am just very intrigued to see what the Sixers do, because this isn't the only move they can make, Mitch. They have to go out and change the team a little bit, I think. I think there was too many glaring holes in that Sixers team that I don't think Nick Nurse can come in, get all the guys to buy in, and just fix immediately. They have to acquire some new players or trade some people out of there. I think it all starts with James Harden. And I think if he decides he's out, that tells you what you need to know, what maybe he thinks about Nick Nurse, whether that's right or wrong. But all I know is we can only speculate. We're gonna have to wait till the next NBA season to see what he does, because there's only 2 teams left standing. And I don't think either of the coaches in these 2 teams left standing, Mitch, are going to be fired after the NBA finals.
I was going to say, going back to your point about Nurse and the way he kind of runs the offense through guards, I'm very interested in seeing what Tyrese Maxey's role will be this coming season, because he was a breakout star this year. I think aside from Embiid, the MVP performer for Philly in the playoffs, I kind of felt like he was the one that was really getting at it at times. Now, in terms of Harden, I did watch some of Nurse's press conference, or introductory press conference, and he was asked about, Harden. He said the typical answer, like, yeah, if he wants to come back, great. We'll see. We'll see if we'll see if the offense will be ran through Harden or if it'll be ran through Maxey. I mean, and especially to see where Embiid's role will be. I don't think it'll be up to MVP level next year unless he just really works out in the offseason to the point where he just becomes an unstoppable force that no immovable object can take on. But I don't know. I'm also curious about the Celtics retaining Joe Mazzulla, because the Celtics loss in the playoffs, I don't think it was solely because of Joe Mazzulla. That's a guy who was thrust into a role that he wasn't expecting going into the start of the season. And then once the team gets off to the start they do, they're like, oh, okay, this is the guy. And then, let's give him the full-time status. This season was a disappointment in Boston. You go from 2 games away from the NBA Finals victory last year to losing in 7 to the Miami Heat when you easily could have lost in 4. Now, granted, you give them credit for not giving up and being able to compete with Miami in those next 3 games. And a lot of people, I think, kind of, probably maybe us included, kind of threw blame at Mazzulla being like, oh, he's too inexperienced. He's not the guy to hype this team up. He's not the guy. Well, players are out there on the court doing what they got to do in these games. And that game 7, say what you want about Jason Tatum's ankle injury, but nobody on Boston came to play that night except for Derek White in 1 quarter. Like that to me, I can understand them trying to have some consistency in the organization, because then you'd be looking for your 4th head coach in 4 seasons. But, I would think there's got to be some serious growing up in the offseason for Mazzulla to match the likes of your Eric Spoelstras, your Nick Nurses, even your, top guys in the Eastern Conference. This is why it's hard. This is why it's hard in the NBA, because the coaches now feel so disposable, even if you're championship material.
Yeah, and I think that with how young he is, the role he was thrusted into, 1 more year is more than fair. The other side of that, though, is Mitch, and we kind of had this discussion as Cleveland fans, is if you're going to get rid of him, who are you going to get?
Yeah,
that's the other key. Who are you going to get that can come in there and work with that team and that offense, especially if Jaylen Brown stays? Now, if Jaylen Brown goes, now we're talking about a whole different team, whole different dynamic, and what can Mazzulla do with that team if they lose Brown in free agency rather than via a sign and trade? We won't know that for a while, but I just don't know who else they could have gone out and got if it wasn't someone like Monty Williams. This is a guy who really had the Celtics playing the best basketball at parts in the season out of anybody in the NBA. And they had a couple lackluster performances throughout the entire playoffs. Even that Philly series, which a couple of those losses were just mind blowing, but they bought in. And then for the Celtics and Heat series, it looked like it was over in 4. And instead the Celtics pushed it to 7, but nobody showed up. And part of that is on the coach, but at the same time, part of it's on the player. Maybe the lights were too bright for some of those players. Who knows? This is a team, though, Mitch, that has made the Eastern Conference Finals 4 straight years, 4 of the last 5, maybe, or maybe 5 of the last 7 or something like that. 1 NBA Finals appearance, and they lost the Warriors. This team knows they're good enough to get there, but what is the real issue for why they're not getting there? Is it the coach, or is it the fact that maybe Tatum and Brown can't coexist? Are we looking at a Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook, OKC type thing here in Boston? We know they're both good. Can they not coexist? I don't know. Well, maybe that's something Mazzulla and Stevens, the rest of that front office in Boston, are going to have to figure out, because it certainly seems like Brad Stevens and the Celtics front office are set on Mazzulla remaining here as head coach. We'll have to wait and see.
Indeed. So finally, we're going to give our picks for the NBA Finals. So Celtics, Heat, Nuggets tip off tonight. I'm going Nuggets in 5. Look, Heat have been great these postseason. It has been one of the most entertaining and exciting playoff runs by a team we've seen since our own back in 2016. Denver's just that good. Denver is a machine. And the rest of I know some people usually like, oh, they had like a week's worth of rest before the start of these finals. Could that come back to haunt them? Personally, I don't think so. I think we're going to see a Miami squad that, while very, not the term steel-minded, but like very competitive, I should say. Denver has size. Denver can really shoot the lights out at times. And you got a guy who could have easily won 3 MVPs in a row working the paint and working the three-point line. Miami doesn't have that. I'm going Denver in 5, but I want to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of people out there that are on both sides of the fence here, Mitch. You know, the Nuggets haven't played in 10 days, rest versus rust. And then the Miami Heat, they're this team that nobody thought would be here, but they're traveling on short rest to the high altitude where it's so hard to play. I don't know what to expect in game 1, if I'm being honest, because I could see the Nuggets looking rusty. I could see the Heat maybe coming out with a great opening half. But then I also do think the fatigue is going to set in, because going from Boston in a game 7 all the way to Denver, which we know is pretty much the hardest place to play in terms of the wear and tear on your body, if you're not accustomed to playing there, you know, almost nightly like these Denver players are, will catch up to you. The Nuggets are the better team. The Heat, though, at the same time, Mitch, nobody expected to be here. And I don't think anybody really expected them to beat Boston in game 7 after we saw what happened in game 6.
Nope.
I just don't know if I can write off the Heat. I do think the Nuggets are the better team. I think the Nuggets are the deeper team. I think they have the more talented players. But isn't that been the case for every team the Heat have played against? Like, when you look at the teams, oh, that team's more talented. That team has the deeper roster. That team has more notable players, and whatever you want to say, but yet the Heat have continued to prove people wrong. I could see this going 7. I really could. I think this could be a very fun series. I am going to take Denver, though, just because when you look at who can go and get you a bucket at any time, they have more players that I would trust in those situations than the Miami Heat, in which really it would only be Jimmy Butler, because Bam Adebayo is going to be getting guarded by Jokic. And although he's not a great big man defender, I just don't know how the Heat can possibly stop the Nuggets.
Yeah,
this series.
That you brought a bit about Adebayo, and I'm not judging a man off of one performance in a game 7. The man couldn't put the ball in the basket constantly throughout the he was getting creative with the ways he was able to miss 2-foot bunnies. That being said, if he can get under Jokic's skin, working more away from the basket than he can probably inside, where Jokic has a size advantage, then you might have something there. If not, Jokic, it was reported that Jokic was giving Anthony Davis fits in the Western Conference Finals. Anthony Davis, generational defensive big man, Anthony Davis, who can drop 30 on a night if he needs to. That's
keyword needs to. It's actually wants to, but he just doesn't want to every time.
That's it's needs to, in the sense of if he's not, nursing an injury, that's not here nor there. Like I was thinking about with the Celtics thing. If the Celtics had won that game 7 and advanced to the finals, you think Robert Williams was going to stop Jokic? You think, and he's not even the starting big. Yeah, the starting big man's Al Horford, and Horford, elite shooter Al Horford. He's not going to outmatch Jokic.
Nobody's stopping Jokic. I think it's been pretty safe to say for the past 3 seasons now. It's who can maybe get him frustrated. You got to pick one of the two. Are you going to let him score at will and take away his passing, or are you going to take away the scoring and make him pass the ball and other guys beat you? The Lakers tried both, and it just didn't really work. Jamal
Yeah.
Murray wouldn't miss the Western Conference Finals. Michael Porter Jr., KCP, they all had a lot of guys, and that's part of the reason I think the Heat or the Nuggets, excuse me, are going to win. Those guys I said are capable of hitting big time shots, and Jamal Murray is also capable of taking over a game when he wants.
Yeah, if you want to win this series for your Miami, you can't let Jamal Murray be your number 2 scorer. You can't let him do that. If Michael Porter goes off and he's taking away shots from his teammates because the man is like a black hole when it comes to assists, maybe. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, maybe. But if Kentavious Caldwell-Pope is scoring around 18 to 20 points and he's the number 3 and 4 leading scorer on Denver,
done.
This series is going to be done by next week, if that. So I don't know. We both have Denver in our number of games respectively. We want to know your guys' thoughts on that. What's that?
I believe during our NBA preview show, I did say Denver would make it to the finals.
I'll have to go back and look at it, but I feel like you might. I can't remember.
I can't remember if I picked them to win or not. I think
I'll tell you what. Why don't I put us on? So yeah, we went back over the footage. I picked Bucks and Warriors, and I picked Bucks. Didn't know that was going to happen. Mitch, I think, went with the Bucks too over the Nuggets.
Yep.
So he was more right than I was, and that's we can Monday morning quarterback it all we want, but it's all about the perspective we have months later. And who'd have known that? The worst thing, if you go back and watch the episode, the worst thing is us, including Dallas, just seeing what happened to them. It's kind of just shows you what we know here on the Big Time Sports Podcast Show. It's what we talk about, basically. All right. Thank you guys for listening or watching the Big Time Sports Podcast Show. We'll be back next week. And Mitch, what is our fact of the day before we sign off?
No fact of the day other than the Baldwin Wallace baseball team is the College World Series for Division III. Obviously, Baldwin Wallace up in Berea, near Cleveland, Ohio. The Division III College World Series kicks off this weekend. They are the number 5 seed, and they will be taking on the number 4 seed Endicott. That is June 2nd at 2:15 p.m. They're out in Iowa. So this is the same place they were at last year. Baldwin Wallace, though, trying to reverse what happened last year and end it on their own terms. Hopefully with the dog pile in the Division III College World Series National Championship. But best of luck to the Yellow Jackets in the D3 College World Series.
Indeed. Best of luck to the Jackets. And thank you guys for listening or watching the Big Time Sports Podcast Show.